with your host, Andrew Romanella.
When you play Battle in Mario Kart and you don't turn off any of the items, there are bananas everywhere. I mean, it's like you're losing your balloons because you're slipping on bananas left and right. Bananas everywhere. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of The Rome Show here on 12ouncesports.com. We broadcast live on YouTube, on X, on Roku, and on Fire TV. I am your host, Andrew Romanella. I got you for the next 25 or 30 minutes, and it is Thursday, April 24th, 2025, which can only mean one thing. That's right, folks. It is the 2025 NFL Draft Round 1 tonight. So that is what we have on the docket for the people today. We will give you the draft order and talk to you about our opinions on which teams need a QB, which teams need defensive help. We'll talk running and we'll talk pass game defense. We will talk about what teams need some weapons on offense. Those are super important, especially if you do have a quarterback. And finally, I will give you my predictions on what I think will happen, or I should say some things I think will happen in the NFL draft. The social media 12 OZ Sports or The Rome Show 1. That's Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok. If it's social media, follow the mothership or follow the show. If at any point in time you want to share the show with a friend, take one of the links and send it to them. Or if it's later you want to share it with a friend, the Rome Show podcast is wherever you listen to podcasts. You comment live on YouTube and X. Without further ado, let's start off our draft coverage here on the Rome Show. Tonight starts round 1 of the NFL draft. The top 5 teams picking in the National Football League draft tonight are the Tennessee Titans at number 1, the Cleveland Browns at number 2, the Giants at number 3, the Patriots at number 4, and the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 5. In those top 5 selections, you would argue that the first 3 teams need a quarterback and are going to have to make a decision on the quarterback position. The next 5 to round out the top 10 are the Raiders, 6, the Jets, 7, the Panthers, 8, the New Orleans Saints at 9, and the Chicago Bears at 10. So when you look at the top 10 picks in the National Football League draft, there is an interesting array of teams. Let's start with the quarterback and what teams need a quarterback. In the top 10 of the draft, you would say Tennessee, Cleveland, the New York Giants, okay? Then the question mark on Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints, the New York Jetropolitans, and what happens beyond Geno Smith in Las Vegas. But those 6 teams, Cleveland, Tennessee, New York, Carolina, not Carolina, New Orleans. Those 5 teams right there are the teams in the top 10 that I see needing a quarterback the most. But here's the deal. Who are you drafting? Because this draft, if you haven't been paying attention, is significantly different than drafts in the past. Now, the top quarterback in this draft is Cam Ward, quarterback out of University of Miami. And number 2 is Shedeur Sanders, the son of Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, who has played at Colorado for the last 2 seasons, started his career at Jackson State. By all indications of the talent, by all indications of the college resume of these top 2 quarterbacks, there is all indication that none of the quarterbacks that would be drafted in the 2025 draft can even come close to the talent of the quarterbacks drafted in the 2024 draft. I mean, think about the 2024 draft. 6 quarterbacks were selected in the first 12 picks of the draft. The first 3 picks of the draft last year were all quarterbacks. So you come into this draft, and the thing with the NFL is the need for a quarterback doesn't change. You always need a quarterback, and that position is so fluctuating year by year that you might have last year not drafted a quarterback thinking you were good, and now this year, all you feel like you need is a quarterback, okay? So when a draft is not deep from a quarterback standpoint, to me, it offers itself up for a lot of interesting things to go on, especially tonight in the first round. No picks have been traded yet. No team has given an indicator on who the first pick of the draft is. Cam Ward is the highly believed first pick of the draft to the Tennessee Titans. But it's not like years past where you're like, that guy's going number 1. That guy's going number 1. Or it's either of those two, and whoever doesn't go 1 is guaranteed to go number 2. Right now, you don't know. Will Cleveland go instantaneously to Shedeur Sanders if Cam Ward's picked, or are they going to get the edge rusher from Penn State, Abdul Carter, who's supposed to be probably the best player straight up in this draft? Do they go for Shedeur Sanders' counterpart in Travis Hunter, who can play both sides of the ball, something Cleveland definitely needs if they believe in their quarterback position, which is asinine if they do? Or do they go completely somewhere else? And then where does that leave the New York Football Giants? Because what's your grade on Shedeur Sanders? Is Shedeur Sanders that guy where you say, listen, if he's there and Cam Ward's been taken, we'd rather Shedeur over Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter? Is that your decision? Are you going to make a crazy decision and go with a linebacker from Georgia, the guy, Jalon, excuse me? Like, what's the decision? And it all really comes down to, what do the Titans do first? And are the Cleveland Browns in simpatico with their quarterback position? Because if they believe what they have in the QB room in Cleveland is ripe to move forward till Deshaun Watson comes back, possibly at the end of this year or the start of next year, then they're probably not going with a Shedeur Sanders, okay? And then you look at the rest of the draft board, okay? And after the Giants, you got the Pats, don't need a quarterback. Jacksonville, don't need a quarterback. Las Vegas presumably doesn't need a quarterback. And then the New York Jets. And I think if you're the New York Jets, you have to draft a quarterback. You have to. And personally, one of my predictions for later is that Jackson Dart's going to be the best quarterback long-term in this draft. How many games he played at Ole Miss, the type of system he was in, yada, 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 yada. So the first 3 picks of this draft are going to go a long way in determining what the rest of the first round looks like. To continue on, after your top 10 picks, you have a neglected group of teams, all with which believe that they should be a playoff contender last year, all with which didn't make the playoffs last year, all with which have general managers that probably believe they're 1 or 2 moves away from taking that next step. The 11th pick goes to San Fran. The 12th pick goes to Dallas. The 13th to Miami. The 14th to Indianapolis. And the 15th to the Atlanta Falcons. And the Atlanta Falcons are someone you want to hone in on, because what happens to Kirk Cousins? One of those 6 quarterbacks we talked about before, Michael Penix Jr., was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons last year, though they signed a QB in Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal. And you know what? You say to yourself, okay, do we try and use Kirk Cousins as a trade piece now? Is he somebody that later on we say to ourselves, hey, you know what? Looking at this thing, Pittsburgh kind of needs a quarterback. They're at 21. We got Kirk Cousins here, and we're at 15. Can we couple Kirk Cousins into another first-round pick? I don't know. Maybe you look at other teams that you believe are good on a quarterback, or you believe that you need to get another player that's not a quarterback and you need to move up, but half your trade capital is Kirk Cousins. There's so much that can happen, but directly in the middle of the draft's the Atlanta Falcons, who have two quarterbacks. And one of them looks to be the next 10 to 12 years, and the other looks like it was not a great decision. Let's move on and see what else we can get. The aforementioned Pittsburgh Steelers are that last team that I feel like need a quarterback. I also threw on here the Los Angeles Rams. Like, what's next after Matthew Stafford? Is it a good idea to draft that player this year, since you're probably going to have a chance at a guy like a Jackson Dart or a Jalen Milrose if you think their draft grade's good enough for round 2, round 3, round 4? I mean, so many times we've seen these great quarterbacks be developed being drafted after the first round, but we'll see. Thomas writes in, what's the over-under for QBs to go in the first round? Thomas sets the over-under on 2.5. All right, here's my thing, all right? The top 5 quarterbacks that are available, pretty much as ranked on by majority of the sports sites. It's going to have Cam Ward 1, Shador Sanders 2, Jackson Dart 3. Then a guy you don't really know about in the top 5 is this guy from Louisville, Tyler So, okay, whose stock has been rising in the last 3 to 4 months. Then you have Jalen Milroe, the quarterback from Alabama. Other names that you might know: Will Howard from Ohio State, Quinn Ewers from Texas, Kyle McCord from Syracuse, Dylan Gabriel, Oregon, Riley Leonard, Notre Dame. All names you've probably remember hearing as we were going through the college football playoff. So to answer your question, Thomas, I'm going with over 2.5 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. Why? Not necessarily because one or two of those players should be a first round pick, but because that's the way the NFL goes. Teams are going to do a little bit more for the quarterback position. They might draft somebody a little bit higher than they should because they're a quarterback. And then you get to, wow, I can't believe that guy was a first round pick. Well, Daniel Jones probably shouldn't have been a top 10 pick, but the Giants really needed a quarterback and they reached there. Josh Rosen should never have been picked before the 3rd round, but the Arizona Cardinals needed a quarterback, so they drafted him there. Jamarcus Russell, I could go on, and that's what happens. So, Thomas, I'm going over 2.5 quarterbacks picked in the first round, but under 3.5. I think it's going to be 3 total picked in the first round. Henry writes in, dude, the Titans are so poverty, I can't even troll in this chat. Ravens run the league. Sorry, man. Enjoy the rebuild. Henny, I'm not a Titans fan. I could care less what the Titans do, be completely honest with you. I don't even think they should draft Cam Ward. That's my personal opinion, but they're going to, okay? And maybe I'm wrong there on Cam Ward, but Henny, I couldn't be more farther away from a Titans fan, big dog. But I also couldn't disagree with you more. The Ravens do not run the league. When's the last time the Ravens won the Super Bowl? I think the Kansas City Chiefs run the league. I think the Ravens are a top 5 team every year in the league. But the statement of the Ravens run the league is definitely not the case. However, they are going to be a top 5 team in the league. But you got to win the championships consistently to be considered the team running the league. I would argue the Chiefs and the Eagles have more league running over the last 5 years than the Ravens, though, Henny, not taking a shot at the Ravens because the Ravens are elite and they're a top 5 team every year. Just saying, not a Titans fan. Also, the Ravens don't run the league comparative to the Chiefs and the Eagles. We are going to run to a commercial break real fast. When we get back from that commercial break, we will talk defense and weapons. You know the deal. It's the Rome Show, 12ozsports.com. Broadcasting live on YouTube, X, Roku, and Fire TV. Back after this commercial break.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money. And we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
Need tickets to that next event? Well, at 12 Ounce Sports, we've got them with soccer anywhere in the world. Tickets to any venue, any sport. Want to go to NCAA or NFL football matches? We've got them.
Yeah.
Baseball at every level. Every Power 5 matchup is available. Don't forget, costumes and paint are optional. What's that? You want to go to Broadway? We have those too. Want to jam out? Every concert, every artist. That's right, at 12 Ounce Sports, we've got the tickets for less. 12ozsports.com/tickets. That's 12ouncesports.com/tickets.
Yeah, the Rome Show, 12ouncesports.com, YouTube X, Roku, Fire TV. I am your host, Andrew Romanella. Got to thank the listeners, Tom and Henny, for writing in and giving us something to talk about here on the NFL Draft. We are breaking down the 2025 National Football League Draft all day here on The Rome Show. Hop on YouTube or X and give us your thoughts. Thomas writes in, I'm excited to see the Browns and the Giants mess this up. Giants will draft Tyler So. Happy draft day, everyone. I mean, that's the other problem with this, right? You know, you're supposed to be excited about a draft day. And the way the NFL has turned the draft the last 15 years into a legitimate, like, day of the year, where, like, we watch other sports all-star game as a specific day of the year. We watch the NFL draft as a specific day on the calendar, like it's, oh my God. But that's what's gone on with football in America. And furthermore, that's what's now gone on with your bad teams. It's almost like you look forward to seeing how your team messes up the draft. You're like, okay, that's a terrible draft pick. We just saddled in for 5 more years of being terrible. And that's how I got to imagine, as Thomas has displayed, that's how the Giants fan feels, the Brown fan, probably the Jets fan. There are some franchises. Myself as a Dolphins fan kind of feels that way. There are just some franchises that cannot get out of their own way. And the draft, it reminds you of those franchises. All right. Last year, the bottom 10 teams in the National Football League in terms of points given up on defense were the Carolina Panthers, the Dallas Cowboys, the Tennessee Titans, the San Francisco 49ers, the Jaguars, the Browns, the Raiders, the Bengals, the Colts, and the Falcons, okay? The bottom 10 teams in terms of run defense were the Panthers, the Saints, the Commanders, the Cowboys, the Bears, the Giants, the Jags, the Titans, the Colts, and the Patriots. And finally, the bottom 10 teams in terms of pass defense, and this is going worst to 22nd in the league: Jacksonville, Baltimore, Detroit, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, New Orleans, Indy, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Carolina. Why do I tell you these things, people? Well, if you look at those 3 defensive categories, a few teams show up consistently that are going to be needing some serious defensive help during this 2025 draft. The first and the foremost is the Carolina Panthers, okay? Worst in the league in run defense, worst in the league in terms of points given up, and 22nd in the league in terms of pass defense. But on the flip side, they've really figured it out with Bryce Young and the quarterback position. They really figured it out the last 6 to 7 games of the season. So they instantaneously can address the defensive side of the ball, get some interior linemen, a linebacker. They can rush the A and B gap, change the run game, and a little bit more. Take the next step in the pass game, okay? You're looking at a Carolina Panthers team that's actually a lot closer to a turnaround than about 10 teams in the league. And when we went into last year's regular season, we all believed, at least a lot of people believed, the Carolina Panthers were going to be like terrible. And they weren't great. But man, when you look at the snapshot of 2024 now, heading into the 2025 draft, yeah, bottom of the league in points, not good. Bottom of the league in run defense, not good. But you're a really good draft away and another good season away from trending upwards. And if your offense is trending upwards, let's start drafting to trend our defense upwards. So Carolina, get some answers on the defensive side. Could be a whole lot closer than you realize. The Indianapolis Colts. And you start to look back and you go, there's an Anthony Richardson problem there. They need to draft a quarterback, I think, or at least need to figure out if the quarterback of the future is in the building or not. Okay. But what I also really noticed is, wow, they were terrible defensively. Bottom 10 in the league in run, in pass, and points given up. So there's a lot of questions you got to answer in Indianapolis. Okay. Do we like our quarterback? Does he have enough around him outside of Jonathan Taylor? And what goes on defensively? Because if you're going to be a strictly run football team, you better have a defense that can play with that. Because you're going to need to control the ball on offense. And if your offense ain't running well that day and your quarterback's not good enough, you better have a defense that can get them the ball back so you can stay with your bread and butter, which is running. So the Indianapolis Colts, a lot of defensive help they should be looking for. And if you think that you have the quarterback that you want, if you're the Colts, then at number 14, you're probably looking at a quarterback. And if for some reason Shedeur Sanders falls, or that's where you get Jackson Dart, is that the worst thing in the world? I don't think so. Okay, but if you're not a grade on that QB as top 15, you got to go defensive side of the ball because you need so much help. Then finally, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, we all thought Jacksonville was terrible last year because Trevor Lawrence played terrible. Doug Peterson was a terrible head coach. And in typical Jacksonville Jaguars fashion, they just were bad. They were the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? We say this about the Jets all the time. Like, sometimes an organization is just an organization. They just can't get out of their own way. And that happened to Jacksonville last year. So they fire their head coach. I do think you have a question mark on your quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. We'll see if he has a bounce back year. But their defense was atrocious, okay? They were 25th in the league in run defense. They were last in the league in pass defense. And they were 27th in the league in points given up per game. So outside of trying to figure out whether or not you have the quarterback, which I think you do, I think Trevor Lawrence is good long-term, you really need to answer questions on the defensive side of the ball. So those three teams I've labeled as teams that truly, without a question in my mind, need to be attacking the defensive side of the ball. Some other teams, like the Washington Commanders, who were in the NFC Championship game last year, but were the third worst team in the league in run defense, you got to address that. That cannot happen, okay? The Dallas Cowboys, they show up here twice. They were second worst in the league in points given up, and they were fourth worst in run defense with one of the best linebackers in the league. But does he have help? Okay? More talent on the defensive side of the ball. Finally, before I give you my predictions, I looked at some teams that kind of do have a quarterback or just in general need some more weapons. And if you look at New England, you look at Seattle, you look at Dallas, you look at Carolina, those four teams, I feel like are a weapon or two away on the offensive side of the ball to where you could really be a different team next year. Sometimes you draft that one guy, okay? Sometimes you draft that one wide receiver, not an insanely deep wide receiver draft, okay? But the wide receiver, McMillian from Arizona, I think he's really good. The guy from Texas, I think Matthew Golden, okay? A few guys on the board there How about the running back from Boise State, Ashton Jonty? Could he be that weapon that's a difference maker for a team? Is Cam Scataba from Arizona State a guy that becomes something? Or do you look not as far as a blue blood college football program in Ohio State with Travion Henderson? Okay. Do those guys become weapons? Are they second or third round grades, quote unquote, but end up being exactly what your team needed long term? Those are all questions that we're getting answers to tonight, but I think need to be answered in New England, need to be answered in Carolina, need to be answered in Seattle, in Dallas, and Las Vegas. Some of these teams that you think you have your QB, you think you have some pieces on both sides of the ball, but man, we need some more weapons. Kai, the goalie, writes in, Falcons bout a Falcon tonight. Kai, I would take that as the Falcons will not trade Kirk Cousins, which is a stupid decision. They will draft a running back in the first pick of the draft, and you're going to say to yourself, what the hell are we doing? That's my prediction for the Falcons, Kai, the goalie. Thomas writes back in, Golden with 4.29 speed. Hope he doesn't end up like John Ross. Yeah, that's the problem there. You don't know. I mean, think about that guy, Kadarius Toney, that was drafted in the first round by the Giants like 5 years ago. Okay. Complete problem on the Giants. They get rid of him, goes to Kansas City, wins a Super Bowl, but still a complete problem. Now all of a sudden he ain't in the league anymore. Now he's going to be a rapper. Like, that was a wasted first round pick less than 7 years ago. Like, that's not, you're not planning for a franchise to draft somebody in the first round and they become a rapper 6 years later. Okay. But that's the problem. That's the problem with this. That's the problem with taking these guys in the first round. That's the problem with not taking what you believe is the best available, especially if that best available also has great character associated with it. Yeah, we're talking NFL draft today here on the World. Let's finish this show with my predictions. I said it before. Cam Ward's going to go number one. That's not really a hard prediction for the most part. Everybody's saying that. I do believe, however, though, Jackson Dart will be the best quarterback in this draft when all is said and done. My next prediction is in. I believe a top 10 pick will be traded, okay, before the picks happen. I think that's going to be from Las Vegas or New England. The Vegas Raiders, they have the 6th pick in the draft. The New England Patriots, they have the 4th pick in the draft. I think that they are going to make a trade. Those two are my predictions on who, but I predict at least one trade will happen early. Then finally, my last prediction's in. Cam Scataba will be elite. I'm not saying he's the best running back, but there's a lot of grades that are down on him, and a lot of hype came in late on him. And I think this is the type of guy that kind of ends up like a Christian McCaffrey. I don't want to say poor man's Christian McCaffrey because I don't think that's that at all, okay? But I think he's going to be the sleepiest of sleeper running backs in this draft. And we look back long-term and we're like, dang, Cam Scataba, great pick in the 2025 NFL draft. Listen for that sounder tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to be time to break it all down. It starts tonight. I think it's 8 p.m. Only round one, so tune in. Leadership Library. My predictions, the Giants lose the most games by 2. So saying that the Giants are going to have the most losses by close range. I would not be surprised. That's just the way it's gone for the Giants the last 5 years. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. We appreciate you. Thank you, Henny. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Kai. And thank you, Leadership Library, for writing in and joining us live. We'll be back tomorrow, 7 a.m. Until then, Andrew Romanella saying peace.
Thank you for listening.